The space station New Sol floated in the darkness above Earth like a glowing jewel. Inside its polished halls, nervous human diplomats checked their uniforms one more time. Today was the most important day in human history. The Velkari Empire had finally agreed to meet for peace talks. Taiho wiped down tables in the Golden Phoenix restaurant, humming softly to himself. At 22 years old, he was saving money for university by working as a waiter. The restaurant was the finest, on the station with huge windows showing Earth below and stars stretching into forever. Tonight, it would host the most powerful aliens humanity had ever encountered. "Remember," said Manager Park, his voice tight with worry, "these Velkari are not like us. They read minds. They think humans are primitive. Do not make any mistakes." Taiho nodded, straightening his black uniform. He had studied the files about their guests. The Velkari were tall beings with smooth gray skin that seemed to glow from within. Their faces looked carved from crystal, beautiful, but cold. They had built an empire across dozens of star systems while humans were still learning to make fire. The restaurant doors opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Chen entered first, followed by 3 human diplomats in their best suits. Behind them came the aliens. Taiho caught his breath. The Velkari were even more striking in person. They moved with perfect grace, their long robes flowing like water. Their eyes held no warmth, scanning the room as if judging everything they saw. At the center of the group walked Empress Nara. She was taller than the others, with silver markings on her forehead that showed her royal status. Her presence filled the room like a cold wind. Next to her walked a smaller figure, and Taiho felt his heart skip. Princess Kira looked like a younger version of her mother, but something was different. She moved carefully, one hand gripping a walking aid that helped her balance. Her crystal blue eyes darted around nervously, not meeting anyone's gaze. "Welcome to New Sol Station," Ambassador Chen said with a deep bow. "We are honored by your presence." Empress Nara nodded once, sharp and quick. "We shall see if this honor is deserved," she replied. Her voice carried across the room without effort, musical but distant. The group moved to the largest table by the main window. Earth turned slowly below them, blue and green and beautiful. Taiho watched the Velkari delegates take their seats. They sat perfectly straight, hands folded, like statues come to life. Princess Kira struggled with her chair. The human furniture was not made for Velkari bodies, and her walking aid caught on the table leg. One of the other aliens, a stern-faced male, looked away in what seemed like embarrassment. "Your Highness," Taiho said quietly, stepping forward. "May I help you?" Princess Kira looked up, startled. Her eyes were the color of winter sky, and Taiho saw something in them he had not expected. Fear. Loneliness. "I can manage," she said, but her voice shook slightly. Taiho smiled the same gentle smile he used with his little sister back home. "Of course you can, but maybe I can make it easier." He adjusted the chair height and moved the table slightly, giving her more room. "Is that better?" The princess blinked in surprise. "Yes. Thank you." Empress Nara watched this exchange with sharp eyes. Around the table, the other Velkari looked uncomfortable. The human diplomats seemed nervous, whispering among themselves. "Water for everyone to start," Taiho announced, moving around the table with practiced ease. He had served hundreds of meals, from station workers to visiting Earth officials. These guests were different, but his job remained the same. Make people comfortable. Take care of them. He placed glasses carefully, noting how each alien held themselves. The male delegate, who seemed to be some kind of general, kept his back rigid and his face cold. 2 other Velkari, dressed in robes marked with scientific symbols, whispered to each other in their musical language. When Taiho reached Princess Kira, he noticed her hands trembling slightly as she tried to grip her glass. Without thinking, he pulled a different glass from his tray, one with a wider base and textured sides that would be easier to hold. "This might work better," he said simply, switching the glasses. The princess stared at him. "How did you know?" "My sister has trouble with smooth glasses, too," Taeho explained. "She taught me that small changes can make big differences." For the first time since entering the restaurant, Princess Kira almost smiled. It was just a tiny lifting of the corners of her mouth, but Taeho caught it. The conversation at the table began slowly. Ambassador Chen discussed trade routes and shared technologies. The Velkari general spoke of territorial boundaries and military concerns. Their words were formal and careful, like dancers who had never learned to trust their partners. Taeho brought the first course, a selection of earth delicacies prepared to be safe for Velkari biology. He watched his guests try foods they had never seen before. Most approached each bite with caution, tasting and analyzing. Princess Kira picked at her plate, clearly struggling with the human utensils. The fork kept slipping in her fingers, and she had to concentrate hard on each bite. Taeho pretended not to notice, but when he brought the next course, he quietly placed a fork with a thicker handle beside her plate. "The human approach to agriculture is adequate," the general was saying. His tone made it clear he thought humans were anything but adequate. "We have learned much from working with different environments," Ambassador Chen replied carefully. "Diversity often leads to innovation." Diversity. The general repeated the word like it tasted bad. The Velkari way is perfection through unity, all thinking the same thoughts, all moving toward the same goals. Taeho was refilling water glasses when he noticed Princess Kira had stopped eating entirely. She sat very still, her hands clenched in her lap. The formal conversation continued around her, but she seemed lost in her own thoughts. When the princess tried to reach for her water, her elbow bumped the glass. It tipped over, sending water spreading across the white tablecloth. The table went quiet. The general's crystal features hardened with what looked like shame. The other Velkari delegates looked away. Even Empress Nara's expression grew colder. "I am sorry," Princess Kira whispered, her voice barely audible. "I am clumsy. I should not be here." Taeho moved quickly, placing clean napkins over the spill. "No problem at all," he said cheerfully. "Happens all the time. These glasses are too light anyway." He produced a fresh tablecloth from his supplies, smoothing it over the wet spot with practiced efficiency. "There," he said. "Good as new." He looked directly at Princess Kira. "My sister spills things too. She says it just means she is too busy thinking important thoughts to worry about water." The princess looked up at him with wide eyes. Around the table, the other aliens seemed frozen, unsure how to react to this human who treated their princesses. Mistake as nothing important. But in Princess Kira's winter blue eyes, Taeho saw something new beginning to grow. Something like hope. The dinner continued, but everything had changed. And in the vast darkness of space around them, neither humans nor Velkari could imagine how much this one small moment would reshape their future. The main course arrived as voices from the conference room next door grew louder. Through the thin walls, Taeho could hear the real negotiations beginning. The human and Velkari diplomats were discussing star maps and mining rights, their words sharp and careful. "The humans want too much," General Voss said to Empress Nara in their musical language. He did not care that Taeho was nearby, assuming the human waiter could not understand. "They think they deserve to be our equals." Taeho continued serving, keeping his face blank. He had studied basic Velkari language in college, enough to catch simple phrases. The general's words stung, but he had learned not to show his feelings. When customers were rude, Princess Kira sat quietly through the meal, picking at her food. She kept glancing toward the conference room where angry voices were getting louder. Every few minutes, she would tap her fingers against the table in a soft rhythm. Taiho noticed the pattern right away. She was tapping along to the restaurant's background music, a gentle piece played by a string quartet. Her fingers moved perfectly with the beat, even though she seemed unaware she was doing it. "Do you like music?" he asked quietly, while refilling her water. The princess looked surprised that anyone had spoken to her directly. Yes, music is the same everywhere, is it not? It needs no words." "That is exactly what my sister always says." Taiho smiled. "She cannot speak well because of her condition, but she can play piano better than anyone I know." "Your sister has a condition too?" Princess Kira's voice held a note of hope. "She was born with cerebral palsy. Her muscles do not always do what she wants them to do, but she taught me that music speaks when words cannot." The princess stared at him with wide eyes. On the Velkari homeworld, no one ever talked about disabilities so openly. People like her were hidden away, kept from public view because they were considered imperfect. From the conference room came the sound of a chair scraping harshly against the floor. "This is waste of time," General Voss's voice carried clearly. "Humans are too primitive for true partnership. They make decisions with emotions instead of logic." Ambassador Chen's voice responded, tight with controlled anger. "We may make decisions differently, but our results speak for themselves. We have survived ice ages, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed other species." "Survival is not the same as superiority," came the cold reply. Princess Kira flinched at the harsh words. Her breathing became quick and shallow, and her hands began to shake. The formal dinner atmosphere, the angry voices, and the constant feeling of being judged as imperfect were becoming too much. Empress Nara was deep in conversation with the scientific advisors about crystal technology. She did not notice her daughter's distress, but Taiho saw it immediately. "Princess Kira," he said gently, crouching beside her chair. "Would you like to see something beautiful?" She looked at him with panic in her crystal blue eyes. I cannot breathe properly. The air feels thick." "I know a place where the air is better," Taiho said. "Would you like to come with me?" The princess nodded quickly. Taiho helped her stand, making sure she had her walking aid. He guided her toward the observation deck, a quiet area beyond the main dining room where floor-to-ceiling windows showed the stars. "Wait!" Empress Nara's sharp voice stopped them. "Where are you taking my daughter?" "Just to the observation deck, Your Majesty," Taiho replied respectfully. "Sometimes a change of scenery helps when the world feels too heavy." The Empress studied his face for a long moment. Something in his honest expression must have satisfied her, because she nodded once. "Stay where I can see you." The observation deck was peaceful and dimly lit. Earth turned slowly below them, showing the lights of cities scattered across the dark continents. Above them, stars stretched into infinity, cold and distant, but somehow comforting. Princess Kira's breathing began to slow as she gripped the railing with both hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "I was drowning in there." "My sister gets overwhelmed too," Taiho said. "She calls it feeling like there are too many voices in her head, even when no one is speaking." "Yes," the princess said with surprise. "That is exactly right. How does she make it stop?" Taiho smiled and began to hum softly. It was an old Korean lullaby his grandmother had taught him, simple and gentle. The melody drifted through the quiet air, mixing with the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Princess Kira closed her eyes and listened. For the first time all day, her shoulders relaxed. The tight lines around her eyes began to fade. "What is that song?" she asked. "A lullaby about the moon watching over children while they sleep," Taiho explained. "My grandmother sang it when I was scared or sad. She said music could heal things that medicine could not touch." "On my world, there are no lullabies," the princess said quietly. "We have ceremony songs and victory chants, but nothing soft, Nothing just for comfort. Taiho continued humming, and after a few moments, Princess Kira began to move. It was barely noticeable at first, just a slight swaying as she held the railing. Then her free hand began to move in time with the melody, creating graceful shapes in the air. "You are dancing," Taiho said with wonder. I do not dance," she said, but she did not stop moving. "Velkari do not dance. Especially not—" She gestured to her walking aid. "But you are dancing right now," Taiho pointed out gently. "And it is beautiful." Through the observation deck's glass wall, Empress Nara watched her daughter move to the human's simple song. In all of Princess Kira's 20 years, the Empress had never seen her child look so peaceful, so naturally graceful. The argument in the conference room was getting louder. Human voices mixed with Velkari ones, each side convinced the other was being unreasonable. They were discussing weapon capabilities now, making veiled threats about what would happen if the negotiations failed. But on the observation deck, something entirely different was happening. A human waiter was teaching an alien princess that she was not broken, just different. And for the first time in her life, Princess Kira was beginning to believe it might be true. "Your sister sounds very wise," the princess said as the lullaby ended. "She is," Taiho agreed. "She always says that the world tries to tell us we are not enough, but we get to decide what enough means." Princess Kira turned to look at him with tears in her crystal blue eyes. "No one has ever said anything like that to me before." "Then no one has been looking at you the right way," Taiho said simply. In the conference room, General Voss was demanding that the negotiations end. He called humans emotional and weak, unfit for alliance with the great Velkari Empire. But on the observation deck, those same human emotions were working a small miracle. Kindness was building a bridge between two very different people. And Empress Nara, watching through the glass, was beginning to wonder if her people's definition of strength might be missing something important. The stars wheeled slowly overhead, ancient and patient. They had watched civilizations rise and fall, had seen species learn to reach across the darkness toward each other. Tonight, they were witnessing something that would change the course of galactic history. It started with a simple lullaby and a princess who learned she could dance among the stars. The restaurant's evening music began to play, soft instrumental pieces that floated through the air like gentle whispers. Taiho noticed Princess Kira's reaction immediately. Her body swayed slightly as she gripped the observation deck railing, and her eyes closed as if she was listening to something beautiful and far away. "The music makes you happy," Taiho observed. "It makes me feel like I am flying," she admitted quietly. "Like my body works the way it should." From the conference room came the sound of chairs scraping and voices raised in anger. The negotiations were not going well. General Voss was speaking loudly about human weakness, while Ambassador Chen tried to keep the peace talks from falling apart completely. "Would you like to dance?" Taiho asked suddenly. Princess Kira turned to stare at him. "I cannot dance. Look at me." She gestured to her walking aid, her unsteady legs. "Velkari dance requires perfect movement, perfect balance. I am neither of those things." "Who says dancing has to be perfect?" Taiho smiled. "My sister taught me that dancing is just moving with joy. There are no rules except to feel happy." The princess shook her head. "You do not understand. I have never danced. I was told I could not learn." "Well," Taiho said gently, "maybe they were wrong." He moved to stand in front of her, careful not to get too close. "Look, dancing can start with just your hands." He raised his arms and began to move them slowly, gracefully, in time with the music. His movements were simple but beautiful, like branches swaying in a gentle wind. Princess Kira watched with fascination. Slowly, carefully, she lifted one hand from the railing and tried to copy his movements. Her hand trembled at first, but as the music continued, she began to find a rhythm. "See?" Taiho encouraged. "You are dancing already." "This is dancing?" she asked with wonder. "This is your dancing," he replied, "and it is perfect, because it is yours." As the music grew more lively, Taiho showed her more movements, simple gestures, that told a story with hands and arms. The princess followed along, her confidence growing with each successful motion. Her face began to glow with something that had been missing her entire life: pure joy. "Now," Taiho said carefully, "would you like to try dancing with your whole body?" Princess Kira hesitated. "I will fall." "Not if I help you," Taiho promised. "Trust me?" The princess looked into his honest brown eyes and saw only kindness there. No judgment, no pity, just a friend who wanted to share something beautiful with her. "Yes," she whispered. Taiho moved beside her, offering his arm for support. "Hold on to me if you need to, but try to feel the music in your feet too." Very slowly, Princess Kira took a step, then another. With Taiho's steady presence beside her, she began to move in time with the gentle melody. Her steps were not perfect, and she had to pause sometimes to catch her balance, but she was dancing. For the first time in 20 years of life, Princess Kira was dancing. "I can feel it," she said with amazement. "The music is in my whole body." Other people in the restaurant had begun to notice. Human diners turned to watch the unusual sight of an alien princess dancing with a waiter on the observation deck. But instead of staring rudely, they smiled with genuine warmth. A little human girl named Sora, eating dinner with her parents, clapped her hands together with delight. "Mama, look how pretty she dances!" The child's mother smiled and nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, dancing is always beautiful when it comes from the heart." Even some of the restaurant staff had gathered near the windows to watch. They had never seen anything like this before, but they could all recognize joy when they saw it. Princess Kira's laughter rang out across the observation deck, clear and bright as silver bells. It was a sound so pure and happy that it seemed to fill the entire space with light. In the conference room, the heated argument suddenly stopped. "What was that sound?" asked one of the human diplomats. General Voss stood up sharply, recognizing his princess's voice, but the sound he heard was impossible. Princess Kira never laughed. She was too broken, too damaged to experience such happiness. Through the glass wall between the rooms, everyone could see the dancing pair on the observation deck. The alien princess moved with careful grace, supported by the human waiter who guided her through simple steps. Her face was radiant with joy. "Is that Princess Kira?" Ambassador Chen asked with surprise. Empress Nara stood frozen, watching her daughter dance. In all the years since Kira's birth, through all the treatments and therapies and disappointed doctors, the Empress had never seen her child look so alive, so beautifully herself. The other Velkari delegates stared in shock. General Voss looked disgusted. "This is shameful," he said harshly. "She should not display her weakness in public." But Empress Nara was beginning to see something different. Her daughter was not displaying weakness. She was showing strength of a kind the Velkari had never recognized before. On the observation deck, the music reached a gentle crescendo. Taiho helped Princess Kira through one final, graceful turn. As the melody ended, she stood glowing with happiness, her crystal blue eyes bright with tears of joy. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for showing me I could fly." The humans watching began to applaud, their clapping warm and encouraging. Little Sora ran over from her table, her parents following behind. "That was so beautiful." "The child," exclaimed, looking up at Princess Kira with admiration. "Can you teach me to dance like that?" Princess Kira looked down at the small human girl and felt something new bloom in her chest. For the first time in her life, someone was asking to learn from her, to copy something she had done. I am still learning myself, she said softly. Then we can learn together, Sora declared with the simple logic of childhood. Empress Nara watched this exchange and felt the world shifting around her. Everything she had believed about strength and weakness, about perfection and failure, was crumbling like old walls in an earthquake. Her daughter was not broken. Her daughter was teaching others. Her daughter was bringing joy to everyone around her, and the human who had made this possible asked for nothing in return except the chance to help another person feel happy. Maybe, Empress Nara thought, the humans were not as primitive as the Velkhari believed. Maybe they understood something about strength that her people had forgotten. The dance was over, but everything had changed. The atmosphere in the restaurant had completely changed. What began as a tense diplomatic dinner had become something warmer, more human. The other guests, seeing Tejo's example, began to approach the Velkhari with genuine curiosity instead of fearful respect. Little Sora had convinced her parents to let her stay near Princess Kira. The child pulled out a sheet of colorful paper from her backpack and began folding it carefully. "This is origami," Sora explained to the fascinated princess. "My teacher says it is like meditation, but with paper." Princess Kira watched the child's small fingers create precise folds. "What are you making?" "A crane," Sora said proudly. "In my culture, cranes mean good luck and long life. They can fly anywhere they want to go." The finished paper bird was delicate and perfect. Sora held it out to the princess with a bright smile. "This is for you, so you can always remember that you can fly too." Princess Kira accepted the gift with trembling hands. No one had ever given her something just to be kind before. On the Velkhari homeworld, gifts came with expectations and political meanings. This small paper crane was given freely, with nothing expected in return. "Thank you," the princess whispered, holding the crane like it was made of precious crystal. Other humans in the restaurant began to follow Sora's example. An elderly man showed one of the Velkhari scientists his collection of Earth photographs. A young woman offered to share her dessert with the cultural advisor, explaining the different flavors and ingredients. For the first time, Velkhari and humans were talking to each other as equals, sharing stories and laughter instead of formal speeches and careful words. But not everyone was pleased with these changes. General Voss stood rigid with anger, his crystal features sharp with disgust. "This is intolerable," he said to Empress Nara in their own language. "The princess is making a spectacle of herself. She is embarrassing our entire delegation." "She is happy," Empress Nara replied quietly, still watching her daughter smile as she learned to fold paper with Sora. "Happiness is not the goal," the general snapped. "Perfection is the goal. Order is the goal. She is displaying her defects for all to see." "Maybe," said the Empress slowly, "what we call defects are not really defects at all." The other Velkhari delegates gathered around General Voss, nodding in agreement with his harsh words. They had been raised to believe that any deviation from perfection was a weakness to be hidden. "Your Majesty," said Advisor Kell, a thin male with scientific markings on his robes, "this behavior is unbecoming of royalty. The princess should be removed from public view immediately." And this human, General Voss pointed at Tejo, who was helping an elderly Velkhari delegate understand a human menu. "He has corrupted her with his primitive emotions. He should be punished for overstepping his position." Empress Nara turned to face her advisors, and for the first time in her long reign, she felt doubt about the Velkhari way of thinking. Corrupted? Her? He helped her discover joy. He showed her kindness when her own people showed her only shame. Joy is a distraction, General Voss declared. Kindness is weakness. These humans are exactly as primitive as we believed. They make decisions with their hearts instead of their minds. And look what their hearts have accomplished. Empress Nara gestured toward the restaurant, where Velkari and humans were sharing stories and laughter. Look at my daughter's face. When has our logic ever made her so happy? The general's expression hardened. Your Majesty, I fear these humans have affected your judgment as well. Perhaps it would be better if I took command of this delegation. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Empress Nara had ruled the Velkari Empire for 30 years, had conquered star systems and commanded fleets. No one had ever questioned her authority so directly. But as she looked at Princess Kira, now helping Sora teach another human child how to fold paper, the Empress realized something important. For the first time in her daughter's life, Kira was teaching instead of being taught. She was helping instead of being helped. She was leading instead of following. My judgment is clear, Empress Nara said firmly. Clearer than it has ever been. General Voss stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Your Majesty, if you continue to allow this shameful display, I will have no choice but to report to the High Council that you are unfit to lead. The other delegates shifted uncomfortably. A challenge to the Empress was serious business, potentially, leading to civil war within the Empire. But before Empress Nara could respond, Princess Kira's voice rang out across the restaurant. General Voss, she called, her voice stronger than anyone had ever heard it. Would you like to learn origami too? The general turned to stare at the princess with horror. She was speaking to him directly, in front of humans and aliens alike. She was acting as if she had the right to participate in important matters. I do not learn from defective beings, he said cruelly, loud enough for everyone to hear. The restaurant fell silent. Even the human children stopped talking. The insult hung in the air like poison. Princess Kira's face went pale, but she did not look away. I am not defective, she said quietly. I am different. You are broken, General Voss replied without mercy. You cannot perform the simplest telepathic functions. You cannot walk without assistance. You bring shame to the royal bloodline. Tejo stepped forward, his face calm but his eyes blazing with anger. She is not broken, he said clearly. She is perfect exactly as she is. You dare to contradict a Velkari general? Voss demanded. I dare to contradict anyone who hurts my friend, Tejo replied simply. The word friend hit Princess Kira like a lightning bolt. No one had ever called her friend before. No one had ever stood up for her. No one had ever told a powerful general that he was wrong to hurt her. Empress Nara watched this exchange and felt something break open inside her chest. This young human waiter, this supposedly primitive being, was showing more courage and honor than her own military commander. General Voss, she said, her voice carrying the full authority of her position. You will apologize to my daughter. I will not, he replied defiantly. And I will not stand by while you allow these humans to corrupt our delegation with their emotional weakness. The challenge was now complete. General Voss had openly defied his Empress in front of witnesses. According to Velkari law, this meant either he would be stripped of rank or she would be removed from power. But Empress Nara was no longer thinking about Velkari law. She was thinking about her daughter's laughter, about a human child giving gifts with no expectation of reward, about a waiter who treated everyone with dignity regardless of their species or abilities. Maybe it was time for the Velkari Empire to learn new laws. Then leave, Empress Nara said quietly. Take those who agree with you and go, but I am staying to learn what my daughter already knows. And what is that? General Voss demanded. The Empress looked at Princess Kira, who was holding Sora's paper crane like it was the most precious treasure in the universe. That strength comes in many forms, she said, and the greatest strength of all might be the courage to be kind. The silence in the restaurant stretched like a held breath. General Voss stood frozen, unable to believe that his Empress had just dismissed him. The other Velkhari delegates looked between their military leader and their ruler, torn between loyalty and tradition. "You cannot be serious," General Voss said finally. "You would choose these primitive humans over your own people?" "I choose growth over stagnation," Empress Nara replied. "I choose learning over ignorance. I choose to see strength where we have only seen weakness." Ambassador Chen stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, what exactly are you proposing?" "Empress?" Nara took a deep breath and made a decision that would change galactic history. "I formally request to extend our diplomatic mission. I want to study human society, particularly your approaches to diversity and inclusion." The words hit the room like a thunderbolt. In the entire history of the Velkhari Empire, no ruler had ever asked to learn from another species. They conquered, they commanded, they took what they wanted. They did not humble themselves by asking for knowledge. General Voss's face contorted with rage. "This is treason against everything the Velkhari Empire represents." "No," said Princess Kira, her voice carrying clearly across the restaurant. "This is evolution." Everyone turned to stare at the princess. She stood without her walking aid, one hand resting on little Sora's shoulder for balance. Her crystal blue eyes were bright with determination. "For 20 years I have been told I am broken," she continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I have been hidden away, kept silent, treated as a shameful secret. But tonight, I learned something important." She looked directly at General Voss. "I learned that the problem was never with me. The problem was with people who cannot see past their own narrow definition of perfection." Tejo smiled with pride at his friend's courage. Around the restaurant, humans and the more open-minded Velkhari began to nod in agreement. "This human," Princess Kira gestured to Tejo, "showed me more respect in one evening than I have received from my own people in my entire life. He saw my worth when others saw only my limitations." "Your worth?" General Voss laughed bitterly. "What worth do you have? What can you contribute to the Empire?" Princess Kira straightened her shoulders. "I can contribute something that has been missing from Velkhari society for centuries. I can contribute perspective." She walked slowly toward the general, her steps careful but determined. "I know what it feels like to be dismissed, to be ignored, to be told you have nothing valuable to offer. How many others in our empire feel the same way? How many potential solutions, innovations, and ideas have we lost because we only listen to voices that sound exactly like our own?" The restaurant had become completely silent. Even the background music had stopped. Princess Kira's words were being broadcast throughout the station, picked up by security cameras and transmitted to diplomatic channels across known space. "The humans have something we do not," she continued. "They include everyone. They find ways for all their people to contribute. A waiter can teach a princess, a child can befriend an alien, an old man can share wisdom with a scientist. They are strong because they are diverse, not despite it." General Voss's crystalline features twisted with disgust. "You speak of the humans as if they are superior to us." "In some ways they are," Princess Kira said simply. The words created an uproar among the Velkhari delegates. Several began shouting at once, declaring such thoughts to be impossible, treasonous, insane. But Empress Nara was listening with new ears. "Continue, daughter." "The humans see strength where we see weakness," Princess Kira explained. "They adapt where we remain rigid. They grow where we stagnate. Tonight I danced for the first time in my life because a human saw possibility where Velkhari saw only limitation." She turned to address the entire restaurant. How many of us are living half-lives because we are afraid to be different? How many innovations have we missed because we only value one type of thinking? How many friendships, partnerships, and discoveries have we lost because we cannot see past our own prejudices? Tejo watched his friend with amazement. The nervous, frightened princess from earlier in the evening had transformed into a powerful speaker, a leader who could inspire others to see the world differently. General Voss had heard enough. "I declare Empress Nara unfit to rule," he announced, formally. "She and her defective daughter have been corrupted by human influence. As the senior military commander, I am taking control of this delegation." Half of the Velkari delegates moved to stand behind the general. The other half remained near Empress Nara, uncertainty clear on their crystalline faces. "You have that right under our laws," Empress Nara acknowledged. "But I also have the right to choose my own path." She walked to where Princess Kira stood and took her daughter's hand. "I choose to stay and learn. Anyone who wishes to join me is welcome. Anyone who wishes to follow General Voss is free to go." The division was immediate and painful. The Velkari scientific advisors chose to stay, fascinated by the possibility of learning new approaches to problem-solving. Two of the cultural delegates also remained, intrigued by human art and music. But the military representatives and the traditionalist counselors followed General Voss toward the exit. As they prepared to leave, the general turned back one final time. "When the High Council learns of this betrayal, there will be consequences," he warned. "The Empire will not tolerate this contamination." "Then perhaps it is time for the Empire to change," Empress Nara replied calmly. As the dissenting Velkari left the station, Ambassador Chen stepped forward. "Your Majesty, this is a brave choice, but it may have serious political ramifications." "All important choices do," the Empress replied. "But for the first time in my reign, I am making choices based on what I believe is right, not just what is expected." Princess Kira squeezed her mother's hand. "What happens now?" Tejo, who had been quietly watching history unfold, spoke up. "Now we learn from each other. Now we show the galaxy that different does not mean lesser." Little Sora, who had been following the adult conversation with wide eyes, tugged on Princess Kira's robes. "Does this mean we can be friends forever?" Princess Kira knelt down to the child's level, her face radiant with hope. "I think it means we can be family." Outside the station's windows, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, but something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. An alien. Princess had found her voice. An empress had chosen growth over tradition, and a human waiter had proven that the smallest acts of kindness can reshape the universe. The real negotiations were just beginning. 6 months later, the Golden Phoenix restaurant was busier than ever before. The dining room buzzed with conversations in dozens of languages as beings from across the galaxy gathered to celebrate something unprecedented: the first graduating class of the Human Velkari Cultural Exchange Program. Tejo adjusted his new uniform, still getting used to his official title as Special Cultural Ambassador. The nervous young waiter had become a bridge between species, helping design programs that taught empathy and inclusion to diplomatic corps throughout known space. "Are you ready for this?" asked his sister Minji, who had traveled from Earth for the ceremony. She was now the program's Director of Adaptive Technologies, working with Velkari crystal engineers to create devices that helped beings of all abilities participate fully in galactic society. "I think so," Tejo smiled. "Though I still cannot believe this all started with serving water and cleaning up a spill." Princess Kira appeared beside them, moving gracefully with her new mobility device. The sophisticated apparatus combined Velkari crystal technology with human adaptive design, allowing her unprecedented freedom of movement. But more importantly, her confidence had grown beyond anything anyone had imagined possible. "The Galactic Council has approved our proposal," she announced excitedly. The Inclusion Initiative will be implemented in 23 star systems by the end of the year. The princess had become the galaxy's most effective advocate for beings with disabilities. Her speeches were broadcast across multiple worlds, and her work had already changed laws and attitudes in dozens of civilizations. She wore her differences now like badges of honor, proof that strength came in many forms. Empress Nara joined the group, her crystalline features softened by something that had been missing for decades: genuine happiness. The division within our empire has been challenging, she admitted. But sometimes breaking apart is necessary before you can build something better. The Velkari Empire had indeed split in two. General Voss led the traditionalist faction, maintaining the old ways of rigid hierarchy and narrow definitions of perfection. But Empress Nara's reform movement had grown beyond anyone's expectations, attracting Velkari who had been silently questioning their society's limitations for generations. "The important thing is that both sides remain at peace," Ambassador Chen said, approaching with a data pad full of reports. "The galaxy is big enough for different approaches to coexistence." The restaurant's main doors opened, and dozens of program graduates began entering. They came from many worlds: humans with various disabilities working alongside Velkari scientists, alien diplomats trained in cross-species communication, young people from multiple civilizations who had learned to see differences as strengths rather than weaknesses. Among them was Sora, now 8 years old and serving as the program's youngest cultural consultant. She had become an expert at helping newly arrived aliens feel welcome, using the same natural kindness that had bridged species barriers that first night. "Princess Kira!" Sora called out, running over with a new origami creation. "I made you," a phoenix this time. Teacher says they represent rebirth and new beginnings. The paper bird was intricate and beautiful, its wings spread as if ready to soar. Princess Kira accepted the gift with the same wonder she had shown 6 months ago, though now her hands were steady and sure. "It is perfect," she said, giving the child a warm hug. "Just like our friendship." The ceremony began with remarks from various officials, but the most powerful moment came when 3 unexpected guests arrived via secure transport: representatives from the Zephyrian Collective, a species that had been completely isolated for centuries due to their unusual physical characteristics. "We heard about your program through galactic networks," explained their spokesperson, a being whose appearance was unlike anything most attendees had seen before. "We wish to learn if there might be a place for us in this new galaxy you are building." Princess Kira stepped forward immediately. "There is always a place for those who wish to learn and grow together," she said warmly. "Difference is not something to be hidden or ashamed of. It is something to be celebrated." The Zephyrian representative's strange features shifted in what might have been a smile. "Then we would like to join your next program session." Empress Nara watched this exchange with deep satisfaction. Her decision to break with tradition had not been easy, but it had opened doors she never could have imagined. The reformed Velkari territories were now centers of innovation and cultural exchange, attracting the best minds from across the galaxy. As the formal ceremony concluded, the real celebration began. The restaurant filled with music from multiple worlds, and soon beings of all kinds were dancing together on the observation deck where it had all started. Taiho found himself partnering with a young Velkari scientist who was learning human folk dances. Nearby, Princess Kira danced with 3 different alien children, her movements adapted but beautiful. Empress Nara sat at a table with elderly humans and Velkari, sharing stories and laughter over cups of tea. "Look at them," Minji said to her brother as they watched the mixed groups dancing and talking. 6 months ago, most of these species had never spoken to each other. Now they are friends, colleagues, family. People just needed permission to be kind, Taiho replied. Once someone shows it is safe to care about each other, everyone wants to try. Ambassador Chen approached with the latest reports from across the galaxy. "The program is exceeding all expectations," he announced. "We have applications from 47 different species, and trade partnerships between program participants have increased by 300%. Trade partnerships are good," Princess Kira said, joining the conversation. "But the real success is measured differently." She gestured toward the dance floor, where beings who had never met before were teaching each other their traditional movements, creating new forms of expression that belonged to no single culture, but to all of them together. "The real success is that no one here feels alone," she continued. "No one feels broken or wrong or ashamed. Everyone feels like they belong." As the evening continued, Taiho found himself back on the observation deck, where everything had changed. Earth turned slowly below, blue and green and beautiful. But now it was just one of many worlds connected by streams of ships carrying students, teachers, and innovators between star systems. Princess Kira joined him at the railing, holding Sora's phoenix origami carefully in her hands. "Do you ever think about that first night?" she asked. "When you taught me I could dance?" "I think about it every day," Taiho replied. "But not because it was the beginning of all this." He gestured to the celebration behind them. "I think about it because it was the first time I saw you smile." The princess laughed. The same clear, joyful sound that had stopped diplomatic arguments and changed the course of history. "I think about it because it was the first time anyone saw me as I really am, instead of as they thought I should be." Inside the restaurant, Empress Nara was addressing the crowd. "6 months ago, my daughter taught me that strength comes in many forms," she was saying. "Tonight, all of you prove that wisdom every day. You are building a galaxy where everyone has value, where everyone can contribute, where everyone belongs." The applause was thunderous, coming from dozens of different types of hands, paws, and appendages. But the real victory was quieter. It was in the Zephyrian representative teaching origami to human children, in the elderly Velkari learning guitar from a teenage musician, in the hundreds of small kindnesses that happened every day between beings who had learned to see each other clearly. As the celebration continued into the night, the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns. They had witnessed the birth of something new, a galactic community built not on conquest or dominance, but on the radical idea that everyone deserved dignity, respect, and the chance to reach their full potential. It had all started with a simple question: "Would you like to dance?" And the answer, echoing across star systems and species, was a resounding yes. The paper phoenix sat on the observation deck railing, its wings spread toward the infinite stars, ready to carry the message of hope and inclusion to every corner of the galaxy. And in the warm light streaming from the restaurant behind them, two friends from different worlds watched the universe transform, one small act of kindness at a time.